Started. Okay, Chair, the meeting is now live and it's also being recorded. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, councillors, to this live stream meeting at the Customer Service and Transformation Scrutiny Committee at Bolsover District Council. This is a public meeting being streamed live to YouTube and via the council's website. If for any reason the public can no longer hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn the meeting until the connection has been re-established. This meeting is also being recorded. Can the facilitator confirm who is in remote attendance at this meeting, please?
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just call on each member in turn. If you can turn on your microphone, confirm your name and that you can see and hear the meeting for me, please. So I'll start with you, Chair, Councillor Rose Bowler.
Councillor Bowler can hear and see okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Turner.
Good morning. I can see and hear you all right.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Cooper, if you could turn your microphone on, please.
She
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. Yes, I can hear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Dixon.
Well, I wanted to do these Collins and Langley Mill.
See and hear. Okay.
Councillor Heffer, we can hear other people in the room around you. If you can confirm that you can see and hear the meeting, but whilst you have the microphone on, we can hear other people in the room.
All right, you will do, but I will mute my phone. Yeah, I can hear and see you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Joesbury.
Yeah, I can see and hear everybody.
Okay, we're also joined by Councillor Mary Dooley today.
Yeah, can see and hear everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Dooley is the portfolio holder joining the Scrutiny Committee today. We also have a number of officers to support the meeting. Joanne Wilson is the Scrutiny and Elections Officer. And myself, I'm from Governance and I'm facilitating the meeting. We also have Alison Bluff, Hannah Douthwaite and Liz Robinson, also from Governance, to support the live stream and clerking the meeting. We have Kath Drury, the Information Engagement and Performance Manager, Ian Barber, the Property Services Manager, and Chris Fridlington, the Assistant Director of Development and Planning. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand back over to you.
Thank you, Donna. I will ask the facilitator now to explain some of the procedures for the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. So before we start the agenda properly, members are reminded of the meeting etiquette that's been circulated to you previously. All members should have their microphone off during the meeting unless you wish to speak and you've been called on by the Chair. Members attending remotely, please leave your cameras on during the meeting. To request to speak, you can use the chat function to type speak, or you can raise your hand on camera. And the Chair will then call on you to speak during the discussion or debate. When a vote is taken, this will be by a show of hands. For those attending remotely, make sure your hand is visible on camera. If you are disconnected from the meeting, please try to rejoin as quickly as possible. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact one of the support officers with the details circulated in the email to you this morning. If you're about to speak, the meeting will wait a few moments for you to rejoin. Chair, I'll hand back to you to start the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I will now begin the agenda. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Could the clerk confirm if we have received any apologies today?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from councillors Anne Clark, Alan Bailey and Tricia Clough.
Thank you. Do members have any other apologies to note? No? Then I'll continue. Agenda item 2, urgent items. I've not been advised of any urgent items for today's meeting. Are there any declarations of interest members wish to make? And could I ask the facilitator to confirm any members wishing to speak?
There were no hands raised, Chair.
Thank you. Right then, agenda item 4. Within the agenda pack, starting on page 4, we have the minutes from the 16th of March 2020 for approval. I'd like to move these as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Could I have a seconder, please?
Rita Turner, second those minutes.
Hold on a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Councillor Josby wishes to speak. So.
Under the apologies, you've got me down under not being there and leaving an apology, and I was there.
Mm.
Noted, Chair.
Thank you. Right, the minutes have been moved and seconded. Could the facilitator confirm who is in favour, please, with a show of hands?
Okay, that's all in favour, Chair. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Right then, agenda item 5, list of key decisions. The link to the most current version can be found on page 8 of the agenda pack. Could I ask the scrutiny officer to brief members on the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. In actual fact, the most recent version we have of this is slightly out of date now in the scheme of things. All the items on the list of key decisions have actually been taken forward to a meeting of the exec. The first couple of items on the list were dealt with at the June exec meeting. There was also an item on there that was dealt with by delegated decision. Members were circulated that report for consultation. The remaining items were dealt with at the July meeting of exec. There will be a new version of the list of key decisions available for our September meeting. But at this stage, we now have quite a gap, obviously with summer recess, but there will be a new version later on for our next meeting. So I'm afraid I don't have any forward items at this stage.
Okay, thank you. Do members have any questions around it? No. I would like to move that we note the report. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'm sorry to say, Rita Turner, second those minutes.
Thank you, Rita. Could the facilitator confirm who is in favour, please?
That's unanimous, Chair. Just before you continue, Chair, I think Councillor Jane Bryson has just joined the meeting. If we could just pause one moment, I'll just confirm that that's who has joined.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bryson, can you hear the meeting?
Yes, I can. Apologies, I had an urgent food parcel to deliver this morning, so that's made me a little bit late.
You could turn your camera on for us then, please, Councillor Bryson, and then remain on mute until you're called on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Chair, you can continue. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Right, then we'll move on to agenda item 6 then. Corporate ambitions performance update. We will now consider the Q1 report reviewing performance against the new corporate ambitions. We have the information, engagement and performance manager here today to present this report. Kath, would you like to begin?
Thanks, Chair. So hopefully, I know papers came out quite late on this, so apologies for that. Going forward, we'll obviously be trying to get papers out in time for so you've got more time to look at the information. Obviously, there's been a lot of change regarding the ambition and the framework to support it, and then obviously COVID's had its impact as well. So if I run through the report then, so as you've just noted, these are the new suite of indicators to achieve the new council ambition over the next 4 years, and this is the first quarterly report. So it's for the period April to June inclusive. It's also, this report contains a suite of service indicators, which is the first time that this information has been brought to this committee, and it will be brought going forward on an ongoing basis to provide you with a level of additional information to support the targets. So just by way of a summary to begin, you can see that there's 10 targets to support the ambition. 6 of those targets are on track and 4 have been affected by COVID, and I'll pick up those as I run through the appendix. And regarding the service indicators, there's 21 indicators in total. 14 of those have returned a positive outturn for Q1, 5 have been affected by COVID. One's recorded a negative outturn for Q1 and one's within target. If I run through the appendix, that'll give members more time to digest the content of this report. So starting with the council plan targets to achieve the ambition, you can see on the appendix the first target 01, CUS 01, that's actually a new target that we've not had before. So this is to measure all customer satisfaction, in all frontline facing services. So it's an important target to gauge how customers feel about our frontline services. You'll note from the update that leisure and contact centres regularly measure this aspect of their service. But we need now, next thing to do is to do an audit of the frontline services, see who's measuring customer satisfaction and who isn't, and then do a rolling programme over the next 2 years. So that's a new target there. Target number 2 is all to do with meeting the accessibility target and achieving a better standard on the website. And you can see from the update that a new website's being developed and to be launched in September. So that's on track. CO3 is the first one that's been affected by COVID. This is the increasing the percentage of digital transactions. Just to note, the only thing that's been affected by COVID is actually the establishment of the baseline. We need to measure currently what our baseline is so that we can report on the improvements going forward. So that's been delayed because obviously ICT resources have been deployed doing other essential work during the COVID period. But it's interesting to note that looking at the figures for the contact centres, that Q1 online transactions have obviously increased significantly from Q1 last year. So 2,605 transactions this Q1 compared to 641 last year. So I think it's fair to say that COVID's probably driven a lot of people to use online services and to obviously use tech in a way that perhaps they didn't previously. So that's one to watch going forward. 04, you can just see from the update what the position is regarding sustainable community strategy. And obviously there's been reports that's been to council and that's noted in the update there. 05 is to do with our corporate equality objectives and publishing that information annually. My team are responsible for this one and we are expected to publish information by September. So we're currently gathering evidence of what we've been doing as a council regarding promoting equality and improving access generally. 06 is a homelessness one, and you can see the targets remained at 50%, and that's been achieved for Q1. 07 is one that's been affected by COVID, but one that members will be very familiar with. It's reducing average relet times, standard voids to 20 calendar days. That's not new, as members will know. That's something that the council's had an aspiration to do for some time. And I know as a committee, it's something that you're looking at anyway, and I think you've got a report on later today to talk. That's probably going to cover some of this. You can note from the update, obviously Q1's been particularly difficult on the relets. 55 is the average for Q1, and there's been no relets of sheltered accommodation during obviously this very difficult time. But you have got relevant service officers in attendance today, so that is useful for that. 08 is maintaining high levels of tenant satisfaction. And you can see from the update there that currently the only tenant satisfaction that's being measured is to do with repairs. And that does return a very good high level of satisfaction. One of the things that the new head of service will be looking at will be ways to measure satisfaction more widely with tenants so that we get a more complete picture of how satisfied they are with the services that the council provides. And then the last two you can see are the two have also been affected by COVID. These are the leisure ones, so increasing participation in sport and delivering a health intervention programme. Obviously, COVID has significantly affected both these targets. There's not been any facilities open, so these targets obviously can't progress at the moment. We'll have to keep these under review. It may be that we need to amend the actual figures assigned to these targets, depending on how long the situation is going to go on with the facilities not being open. So that concludes the part of my report to do with the higher level targets. Don't know if you want me to take questions at this point before I move on to service indicators.
Has anybody got any questions?
Councillor David Dixon, Chair.
Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, can I just ask regarding the target number 3? Are there doing cash transactions now?
Sorry, what was that last bit? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
It's just about cash transactions. Has that been re-established now in the contact centres?
I don't know, to be honest, but I can by all means ask the customer services manager after the meeting to feed that back to you, Councillor Dixon.
Thank you.
Has anybody else got any questions or comments?
No other hand raised, Chair.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Thank you for that, Kath. I would like now to move the recommendation at point 6 within the report on page 5 of the supplementary papers. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Rose.
Thank you, Andrew. Could the facilitator say to, that's it, facilitator confirm who is in favour, please?
Okay, if you could raise your hands if you're in favour on screen. That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. And thank you, Kath, for
Chair,
joining us and presenting the report. You are now free to leave the meeting.
Okay. Chair, would you like me to run through the indicator bit of the report, or are you happy just to accept it in the report as you've seen it?
I think we're happy to, as we've seen it in the report.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's just that with it being new information, I didn't know if you want me to talk you through any of the new information, but if you're all comfortable with it as a committee, that's absolutely fine.
Are you all comfortable, or would you like her to go into it? If you're comfortable, can you raise your hands, please? Okay. Is that all right, Donna?
Yeah, that was everyone, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. And thank you, Kath, very much.
Kath, before you go, did you establish a new way of collating the adaptations that we talked about at the last meeting?
What was the question? What was the?
Well, at the last meeting when we did the quarter reports, we talked about the adaptations and it was a percentage, and I said it would be better if it was perhaps how long it took them to do it sooner than the percentage of like it was before.
It's not here as a. It's not part of the suite of the targets that we've signed off for the ambition, but at the moment all heads of service are going through their service plans. So at the moment, in the additional information I've provided in this report, the service indicators are the existing service indicators. So they're things that we've been measuring for some time. Between now and the end of October, each service manager and their heads of service have got to put together a service plan, and there'll be a suite of indicators in there. So it's more appropriate for an indicator around the adaptations to be in the housing service plan. So by all means, Councillor, I can feed that information back to see if we can pick it up at service level, and you'll still get that information in this report because we're now reporting on a wider set of indicators. So I'll pass that suggestion back, and I'll look back at the previous note as well from that meeting that you referred to.
Thanks, Kath.
Okay with that, Andrew? Right, I think somebody's digging Roundup outside, I'm not sure. Right, thank you very much, Kath, for all the information you've given us. Has she gone? Right, then we'll move on to agenda item 7 now, update on voice service. We now have the Assistant Director of Development, Chris Fridlington, joining us, and the Property Services Manager, Ian Barber. This is a verbal report briefing members on current performance by the service. In light of our current review looking at the reletting of council properties, this will also cover activity during the first quarter as lockdown came into force. If I could pass over to you, Chris and Ian, take us from there, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's Chris, Assistant Director of Development. I'm sure most members will know. If not, just before lockdown, I was asked to go down to the depot to sort of give them a bit of support over the COVID period. And obviously the lockdown itself was announced on the 23rd of March. I'm sure you remember at that time, there's various changes to practice. We all were supposed to be working from home unless you couldn't. A lot of suppliers shut down, a lot of contractors went into furlough and so on. So from the start of lockdown until the end of Easter, the housing department was mostly focused on emergency repairs. They offered a 24-hour, 24/7 service, which of course meant that voids were starting to accumulate. So when we came out of the Easter close, they put the entire workforce into voids, into sorting them out. And over that period of time, over about a month, they cleared 50 voids after going through all the relevant health and safety procedures, making sure everyone had got the right PPE, getting the suppliers back on board and so on. And that cleared the entire backlog of pending voids at that point, apart from the safe and warms and the management voids. At that time, you'll remember, I'm sure you'll remember, that housing moves were not allowed until mid-May. And we didn't, as that was announced, I think it was something like the 14th or 15th of May, the government suddenly announced that house moving was back on. So by the following week, we started to advertise via choice-based letting again. And of course, there's about a 3-week turnaround on adverts. So from early June, we started signing up again from contact centres. On average now, they're signing up about 15 a day. And of course, to get that done, they had to go through again the whole rigmarole of going through the health and safety of escorted visits. How do you do a sign up in COVID times, etc. Well, they've managed that pretty well. And at the minute, since they've started allocating up until the end of last week, they've signed up 76 properties. They've done 100 voids, and they're far in advance of many other councils across the Sheffield City region, across Derbyshire, in terms of where they are. They've caught back up on responsive repairs. So whilst the Q1 figures look really bad, they've actually done a really great job to turn it around, to at least leave us in some sort of healthy position as we go forward. I know Kath mentioned that we weren't doing the sheltered accommodation, but that started again in July to sort of tie in with the 1st of August end of shielding. So as far as we go now, we're up and running. With a full service, probably signing on more people than we ever have done per week. Up to date with void repairs as such, other than, of course, one of the fallouts of COVID has been a delay on getting keys back, again, which is related down to people not being able to move their homes or shielding. So at the minute, there's about 45 voids that require letting that are sat in the system ready to let. So that'll go forward over the next month or two. But I just wanted to highlight now while we're on that, whilst I think they did a great performance over COVID and are starting to pick up the service, I don't know how well members are aware that the open housing system launches in August. And when that launches, that'll be nearly a month where they'll be unable to do any lettings. So we do have concerns about the target. Certainly from Q1, you'll have a COVID impact, Q2 and Q3 potentially an open housing impact, and maybe it'll be the last quarter when they finally get towards the target figure. Well, I know Ian's also on the line as well, so unless there's any questions about that little bit of an update, I would want to pass on to Ian, who's, I suppose officially now, he's head of property services and housing repairs. So I don't know if there's any questions first.
Is there any questions from any members, please? Is anybody wishing to speak, Donna, please?
No, there's no hands raised, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Then over to Ian, please.
Morning, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chris, for the handover. So in terms of void reporting, obviously Victoria Dawson and I have recently been appointed to the head of service positions for responsibility for housing, and we are looking to meet later this week to agree priorities for discussion. The voids process covers both of our areas of responsibility, and we are fully aware of the importance of voids to members. I am also meeting with Councillor Peake, the housing portfolio holder, this morning, to get a clear steer on her thoughts and aspirations with regard to the repair service and voids specifically. And I'm aware that Scrutiny has also looked at the voids process, so I'm wanting to understand the findings of your review to see where improvements have been identified. And finally, in terms of voids reporting, although I have my own ideas, I'd welcome your thoughts on the type of reporting you would like to receive. And we can then work with the open team to see what information we can readily report on. And if it's not currently possible to report on, what we need to do to make that happen. I've listed out a couple of examples in terms of we could report on possibly property list per ward, which I think would be useful for you. Maybe income or rent loss through void, and looking at whether you want average days in total or whether you want it to split into the repairs process and the lettings process, or possibly even further if that data exists. So I'll hand back to yourself, Chair, to see if there's any questions or suggestions in terms of reporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Has any members got any comments or questions, please? Yes, Andrew.
This sounds like a breath of fresh air. The main problem we've had over the last 5 years that I've been on this committee is getting a real good up-to-date information. So I hope that the new property services manager will follow through with this, and which it sounds like he will do, and we'll get the information that we've always wanted. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Andrew. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Councillor Bryson, Chair.
Councillor Bryson.
Yeah, I think one of the reports that he mentioned, voids by council wards, would be very helpful. I've got a couple of issues in South Normanton, and as Chris knows, there was one in Blackwell as well. So I think voids by council wards would be very helpful for councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Bryson. Anybody else wishing to speak? No?
No, Chair.
I'd just like to say it would be helpful for to go into wards. It's very similar to some information we used to get years ago, and it was a lot more helpful. So, where are we? Is there any more comments or questions then? Thank you. Joe, is there any summary you would like to give on this one?
I think what members will be satisfied with from what Ian said is that obviously there is scope to expand what you're getting in terms of void information. That is something we've discussed quite a bit really during the process of the review. It's probably easier to talk outside of the meeting with Ian once we've perhaps had the informal meeting after the main committee today. We're in the process of finalising the report from that review. And there are various elements in that talk about how we can get the information better and wider as well, just generally the information that's being monitored in terms of housing. I've explained to Chris in a couple of conversations, we have got some information from other neighbouring authorities within the East Midlands area, looking at the types of housing information that they monitor, and that's thrown lots of different things up, new stuff that we don't monitor now, or if we are monitoring it, it's not coming to members, and we found that a really useful benchmarking exercise. So we've got a lot of information to pass over for officers to consider, just new ideas really in terms of how things are taken forward under the new managers. So that's something we can certainly discuss once we've sort of finished committee and we're ready to bring the report forward.
Okay, thank you, Jo. Has anybody else got anything? Okay. Well, thank you for presenting, Chris and Ian. You're free to leave the meeting.
Did you want to come back, Ian?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to ask if I could have a copy of the draft report, if possible. But if not, I'm happy to wait. But obviously, the quicker we've got it, the quicker we can start looking at the recommendations and I know Victoria's as keen as I am to look at how we do things and get information back to members. So I think it'd be useful for both of us if it would be possible to share that. And I think also, Chair, you want some feedback on New Bolsover possibly. So I was gonna wait, if that's okay, if there is anything that you need me to update.
Yeah, that's fine, Ian, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, once we've finalised the actual report in draft, members are happy with the content and the recommendations that are in it, it naturally comes out to all managers or all service areas that are affected by that for them to provide a comment about the recommendations, the feasibility of delivery, so that we know that what's going forward in the final version to exec is deliverable. Ultimately, we don't want to be in a situation where we've got recommendations that can't be delivered. So once we're at that stage, then there's naturally consultation with officers as to the content of the report.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Councillor Dixon's raised his hand, Chair.
Oh, sorry, David. Yeah, over to you.
Just to Ian, can you give us a quick update on what's happened on New Bolsover regarding the water leaks? Do we have any kind of resolution on that?
This is what we're going to go into on informal. So Ian's going to stay behind.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you. Right then, has Chris left us?
I think Chris will also be staying for the informal part of the meeting as well.
Okay, that's no problem. Right then, if we can move on now to item 8, work programme for 2021. We shall now consider our work programme for the coming year, and I'll pass over to our scrutiny officer. Over to you, Jo.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously we've not had scrutiny conferences we normally would, which helps shape our work programme for the coming year. I have had some ideas forward from councillors in terms of possible review topics. There's still scope to submit something if you have an idea, but what we're tending to focus on at the minute is the completion of our reviews from last year, and we're also very focused on the impact of lockdown on services, how we are recovering from that, any new plans that need to be put in place. So a number of the items that we've got scheduled do focus in on that going forward. The next meeting that we will have is on the 14th of September. We've got our usual updates from the complaints officer, which will be the annual report for the council and the ombudsman report. There's potential for a couple of other items at that meeting, which members need to consider. I'm hoping to start to programme some updates from the head of partnerships and transformation, which will help to give us our regular updates from Transformation Governance Group. I know that work is happening in a slightly different manner currently due to the impact of COVID, and some of the meetings aren't happening in the way that they were. So I'm waiting for an update on that to know how regularly we can get that transformation information to committee. And I've not got that confirmed yet, but I have penciled in a slot for September potentially. Obviously we heard in the performance update about the new website that will finally go on stream in September, and I discussed briefly with the chair before the meeting commenced about potentially getting an update on that to September before that goes live. I don't know what members think to that idea, if you'd like me to follow that up, see if we could get an update. Is that something members would be interested in? I'm seeing a couple of thumbs up, so I'll take that as a yes and see if we can get something for that meeting. We're also still monitoring some reviews that took place during 2018-19. So we've got the review of Standards Committee and the review around environmental health and licensing. They are partially complete, but there are a few recommendations outstanding. I'm hoping to get an update around the standards work in October for you, and there should be an update around the environmental health and licensing work in November. So they're provisional dates at this stage, but we should have those come to committee certainly before Christmas. I know quite a bit of work has happened in relation to the Environmental Health Service, and members might be interested in looking at the report that went to exec in June for a more detailed update as to what's happening with that service currently. It is worth a read of that report, and that is in the public papers. We'll have a further update on complaints in December, and we have the usual performance updates programmed in throughout the year. At this stage, we're hoping to complete our re-lettings review sort of fairly imminently. Hopefully that we'll program another informal meeting either towards the end of August or very beginning of September, so we can get that signed off. And obviously we're due to hear around New Bolsover shortly when we finish this main public meeting to update on that, and then we'll hopefully be able to move forward with that review report as well. If there aren't any further points from myself, but I'm happy to take questions from members, or if you've got any other ideas that you want to bring forward for future agenda items, I'm happy to note those down and follow that up for you.
Okay. Has anybody got anything else? So you're all happy with that? Okay, thank you.
So it's just to move the recommendation, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to move the recommendation at point 6 within the report, page 10 of your papers. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you, Ray. Could the facilitator confirm who is in favour, please?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Right, can I thank members and officers for their attendance today? That now concludes the business of the meeting, and I shall close the meeting and ask for the live stream to be ended. To the public with us on YouTube, thank you for watching. And could I please remind members to stay connected so that we can continue with our informal meeting?